There is a peculiar ache that lives inside you, one you cannot name but recognize immediately when it surfaces in the quiet hours of the night. It is not the sharp pain of injury or the dull throb of heartbreak, but something older, something woven into the architecture of your nervous system itself. You have felt it when scrolling through lives that seem more complete than yours, when lying awake replaying conversations that went wrong, when watching the seasons change and realizing another year has dissolved into memory. This ache is suffering, but here is what no one tells you. You have learned to need it. You have built a home inside its walls. And the most unsettling truth of all is that this strange comfort you find in suffering is not a flaw in your psychology, but a feature of your biology, written into your genes by millions of years of evolution that never promised you happiness, only survival. We begin with a question that sounds simple, but unravels everything. Why does the human mind seem engineered to suffer? Why do we ruminate on past failures with such obsessive detail? Why does anxiety hijack our thoughts, projecting catastrophes that statistically will never occur? The answer lies not in modern life or social media or capitalism, though these amplify what was already there. The answer lies in the Pleistocene, in the African savanna, where your ancestors learned that the cost of overlooking danger was death. Natural selection does not care about your contentment. It cares only that you survive long enough to pass on your genes, and it discovered long ago that a mind tuned to detect threats, to catastrophize, to remember every humiliation and failure, is a mind that stays alive. Your anxiety is an heirloom from beings who survived precisely because they could not relax. Your depression, that heavy fog that makes the world feel drained of color, may have roots in an ancient behavioral shutdown mechanism, a way of conserving energy and avoiding danger when resources were scarce or social defeat was total. The brain you inherited was forged in an environment where contentment was dangerous, where the satisfied animal was the eaten animal, and so you became a creature capable of achievement and art and love, yes, but also a creature that cannot stop scanning for what might go wrong, that finds it nearly impossible to simply be. But evolution's cruelty goes deeper still, because it did not stop at making you vigilant. It made you conscious. Somewhere in the last few million years, in the expansion of the prefrontal cortex and the elaboration of language and symbolic thought, you became aware of your own awareness. You became capable of reflecting on your existence, of knowing that you know, of imagining futures and mourning pasts. And with this gift came the curse. You became the only animal that knows it will die. You became capable of existential suffering, a uniquely human torment that no other creature endures. A gazelle being chased by a lion experiences terror, but it does not experience the dread of knowing that someday, inevitably, the chase will end. It does not lie awake contemplating the meaninglessness of running. You do. You are trapped in a body designed for survival, but gifted with a mind that can see beyond survival to the ultimate futility of the entire project. And here, in this gap between biological imperative and conscious awareness, suffering found its perfect breeding ground. Do you ever feel like consciousness was never meant to exist? Like it was an accident that evolution stumbled into and cannot undo? Right, I've felt it too, if you understand. Because there is something almost cosmically wrong about a universe that spent billions of years operating without self-awareness, without meaning, without suffering, and then somehow produced a species that experiences all three. You are the universe looking at itself, and what it sees is terrifying. Entropy, impermanence, the slow heat death of everything. Your suffering is the price of sight. Yet here is where the narrative takes its strangest turn, where biology reveals something so paradoxical it borders on poetic. You do not just suffer, you seek it out, you return to it. You find in suffering a kind of meaning that happiness can never provide. Consider how you listen to sad music when you are already sad, how you watch films that you know will devastate you, how you replay painful memories with a compulsion that resembles addiction. There is something in suffering that feels more real than joy, more substantial, more true. Neuroscience offers us clues to this paradox. When you experience emotional pain, your brain activates many of the same regions involved in physical pain: the anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, the amygdala. But it also activates regions associated with reward, particularly when that pain is meaningful, when it connects you to something larger than yourself. Studies on grief show that the brain processes mourning in ways that overlap with love itself, that the pain of loss is inextricable from the depth of connection. You suffer because you loved, and in suffering, you prove that you loved. The pain becomes evidence of meaning in a universe that offers so little. This is why suffering feels sacred, why cultures across history have built entire religious and philosophical systems around it. The Buddha's first noble truth, Christ's passion, the existentialist's embrace of anguish, these are not celebrations of suffering for its own sake, but recognitions that suffering is the gateway to depth, to authenticity, to meaning. There is also the uncomfortable reality that suffering gives you identity. In a world where everyone performs happiness on social media, where joy is commodified and positivity is sold as a lifestyle brand, your pain is yours alone. It cannot be copied or consumed. It is the most intimate proof of your existence. You are what you have survived. Your traumas, your losses, your private agonies. These are the stories you tell yourself about who you are. To let go of suffering would be to let go of a version of yourself you have spent years constructing, a narrative that makes sense of chaos. Psychologists call this the self-verification theory, the human tendency to seek confirmation of existing self-concepts even when those concepts are negative. If you believe you are someone who struggles, you will unconsciously create situations that confirm this belief because it feels more coherent than change. The comfort in suffering is not masochism, but consistency. It is the devil you know. And perhaps most unsettling of all is the biological fact that your nervous system adapts to chronic stress in ways that make suffering feel normal. Your baseline resets. The neurotransmitter systems that regulate mood become dysregulated, but in their dysregulation, they find a new equilibrium. This is why recovering from depression or anxiety often feels worse before it feels better, why people in abusive relationships return to their abusers, why soldiers miss war, why prisoners struggle with freedom. The absence of suffering creates a vacuum that your nervous system does not know how to fill. You have been shaped by your pain, and in some fundamental way, you have become it. To remove it would be to remove the scaffolding that holds you upright. So here you are, a conscious animal in an indifferent universe, carrying a brain that expects danger and a heart that seeks meaning in the only place it can reliably find it, in the depths of suffering. But this is not where the story ends, because recognizing the strange comfort you find in suffering is the first step toward a different relationship with it. You do not have to reject suffering or transcend it, or pretend it does not serve some deep purpose. You only have to see it clearly, to understand that evolution made you this way, not to punish you, but because it was the best solution available for survival in a hostile world. To recognize that your suffering is not evidence of your failure, but evidence of your humanity, of a consciousness that dares to feel the full weight of existence. The darkness is not something to escape, but something to witness, to honor, to integrate. You are not broken for finding meaning in pain. You are a biological creature doing exactly what biology designed you to do, surviving, searching, suffering, and somehow, in the midst of it all, creating beauty from the ashes. Your depression is your mind trying to protect you. Your anxiety is your ancestors whispering warnings. Your grief is love with nowhere to go. And your strange comfort and suffering is the proof that you are still here, still feeling, still achingly alive. The tragedy of consciousness is also its gift. You alone can bear witness to the darkness and choose to find in it not just horror, but something approaching grace. If you see beauty in the darkness of existence, If you understand that suffering is not the opposite of meaning but its foundation, then you belong here. Subscribe to this channel because we explore what it means to be human in a universe that was never built for us, and we do it together, in the dark, where the truth lives.